What is up, everybody? My name is Hector Flores, host of the Insert Name FC podcast, a member of the Belly Up Sports Media Network. You can find us on all things podcasting, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast fix on, you will find us there at Insert Name FC. You can also find us on our YouTube channel. We usually break these episodes into short video form, so it's a little bit more digestible for certain people. I understand maybe hour, 2 hour plus long episode maybe not the most ideal for some people, so we break them down into short videos, so it's a little bit more digestible, especially if you want that visual aspect. So we are available on YouTube. Also, full video podcast is available on Belly Up's YouTube channel, and also the full video version of this podcast, as well as the short video clips, are also available on Goals TV, GOZ.tv, which I highly recommend you check that out. It's really cool, especially if you're looking for soccer content made here in the US of A, and also some abroad. So it's not just America eccentric, but it is very much the opinion of most Americans if that is something that you are intrigued by. So there's that. But yeah, episode 212 episode. Wow. So this episode we do have headlines. It's a little bit more of the U.S. men's national team aftermath. We'll talk about everything that has transpired since the embarrassment that U.S. men's national team had and the CONCACAF Nations League. Also, Club Leon going through some stuff right now in the FIFA Club World Cup. They have been removed from the Club World Cup due to we'll get into that, and we'll talk about if it's right and who should replace them if they do need to be replaced. Well, we also have Jose Tellez to not only talk about MLS Onside, but Peter Vermes. Breaking news has been fired. Well, at this point, it's old news now by the time this episode drops. But Peter Vermes gets fired from Sporting Kansas City. Thank God. Or maybe I kind of wish that would have still been a thing because he's been god awful with Sporting Kansas City. But he has been finally fired. He is the second coach now fired in MLS. So we'll see. We'll talk about that for a brief point, but the whole thing will be more focused on MLS Onside episode 6, The Window. We'll talk about our thoughts on that episode and is it better than last week's episode? Give you guys players of the week, and then give you guys some games to look forward to this coming weekend. And yeah, wrap this show up in a pretty little bow for you. Pretty straightforward episode. No Edward this week because, so as a matter of fact, I am recording this on Monday because on Sunday, me and Edward went to go see the Sugarland Space Cowboys, which is the AAA baseball team for the Houston Astros. Edward got free tickets, so we went. And all right, so here's my obviously if you know me really well, I do like baseball. Baseball, I will say, is my second favorite sport, my number one American sport, I guess you could say. But obviously football and soccer is king to me. But baseball is a sport that I do generally like, and it is cool to watch AAA just because it's like the future guys that could be making it to the MLB is playing there right now. So I think it's interesting. If you guys ever go have the opportunity to go check it out, I highly recommend it. So little thing that's funny. I hate the Space Cowboys name. So before they were the Space Cowboys, they were actually the Sugarland Skeeters. Their whole mascot was a mosquito. I thought that was cool. I thought they should have kept that, but they rebranded as the Space Cowboys. I've literally shat on this rebrand for the longest. I even told the people because I actually know the people that did the rebrand, and they were like, "Oh, you think it's cool?" I was like, "No, I think it's terrible." I've actually told that to their face. I think it's awful. I didn't like it. They said they were looking for a space theme. There's nothing space theme about Cowboys. You just threw the name space in front of it and called it a day. To me, that's just lazy marketing, in my opinion. But and then I was telling this to Edward, and Edward so put me on blast. Said, "Well, if you got to do the rebrand, because he knew I liked Skeeters, he thought I wanted to keep Skeeters, but he's like, if you were to rebrand, what would you have rebranded the team as?" And I told him the Sugarland Imperials because Sugarland. The reason why it's called Sugarland is because the Imperial Sugar Factory is located in Sugarland, and it would they literally are they are on the same street as the factory. So I was like, if it wasn't going to be the Sugarland Skeeters, it would have been cool to be the Sugarland Imperials. And, but that's my opinion. Obviously, you guys aren't here to talk about baseball, so we'll go right into the episode. So we're going to take a break and then go right into headlines talking about the aftermath of the U.S. men's national team. Let me tell you guys about Belly Up Sports. Belly Up Sports is the internet sports bar. Go ahead and check out their website, www.bellyupsports.com, to read some great articles from great writers all across the country, from hockey, baseball, golf, soccer, you name it. Belly Up Sports is the premier, not your average website. All right, guys. So I forgot to mention, follow us on social media at Insert Name FC on Instagram, X, and Facebook. Yeah, that's where you can go check us out. Also check us out on YouTube. But the U.S. men's national team obviously lost, got eliminated by Panama in the semifinals, and then lost to Canada in the third place game for the CONCACAF Nations League. And what transpired is something that I think is very much needed. But before I get to that, for everybody that said, who cares, it's the Nations League, I just want to give you a giant fuck you. And the reason why, sorry, Kelsey, but I am going to drop some F-bombs in this episode. The reason why I say that is this is a competitive competition. We have a very short window now. We have the Nations League, and then now the Gold Cup that's coming in the summer to have competitive matches before going into the FIFA World Cup in 2026 that summer. I get it that the U.S. doesn't have to do any qualifications to go to the World Cup because they're automatically qualified, being that they are the host nation for the World Cup. But at the end of the day, if you have so many opportunities to show what this team could do and market this team as much as you can do prior to that World Cup, and winning competitive tournaments is that way. If you're putting in a terrible half-ass effort in the CONCACAF Nations League, a tournament that you have now won 3 times consecutively, obviously not no more because you got eliminated in the 4th installment of this tournament. And I get it. Nations League is not the most popular tournament. I get that part. But at the end of the day, it is a tournament that is being done, and it is a tournament that still needs to be taken seriously. That's all I'm saying. And once again, you have a short window to prove to the U.S., not even forget the world, the American fans that don't watch soccer, this is the opportunity that you can get them to get in behind and support this U.S. team. And all the people that show, oh, look how empty the stadium is. Once again, context matters. This was a doubleheader. The people that were definitely going to buy the tickets were the guys who were going to go there to see Mexico, especially when you have it in LA. So I don't want to hear it anymore. It was a doubleheader. If it was individual tickets, I still wouldn't know if they would have sold out. I think in reality, maybe they should have had the U.S. be the 9:00 game and had Mexico play earlier. I don't know. I don't make the rules. But obviously, CONCACAF knows that Mexico brings them the money, and they got to make sure Mexico stays happy. And that's why they're the last match. And I get it. I totally get it. So I was fine with that whole thing, but it was embarrassing. People need to be critical about the U.S. men's national team. And I'm going to mention a podcast that obviously has no affiliation to Belly of Sports, but part of my take, they brought up, I was praying to God that they weren't going to talk about the Nations League because Big Cat is not really a soccer guy. And which sucks because Big Cat is one of my biggest influences when it comes to podcasting. Hank is a fucking moron. I'm just gonna say point blank, and directly disrespects football, soccer, football, whatever you want to call it. He directly disrespects it every single time whenever it's brought up. PFT tries. I think PFT is actually genuinely someone that does support soccer in some level, not very fully knowledge, but he is someone that does watch MLS, I think at least watches like DC United. So I think that, and obviously he's the one that brings it up. So I think that he genuinely does like soccer in some aspect. But obviously he's more focused on football. And so obviously PFC brings up, hey, You guys wanted me to bring up the fact that like what happened in Nations League, and then Hank said, "Who cares? They're already going to be in the World Cup." I care. The guy that went viral at the stadium that said that we bleed for this, that we need change. That guy who got clowned, by the way, by everybody, like, oh guys, relax, hey, it's soccer, get used to it. Like, here's the thing though, and I'm gonna say that this is, and I'm going into a rant, and I'm not. There's no way to end this. We get told that we need to be more. We need to take this sport more seriously. We try to take this sport more seriously by being critical about the U.S. men's national team, and then we're told to relax because it's not big of a deal. Like, and this isn't about maybe even amongst Americans, but like amongst people that are outside of American sports, maybe guys, the guys from Europe and all that, blah blah blah, and even Mexicans as well. Like, you want us to be critical about our teams. You want us to take this sport seriously. When we try to be serious and we try to be critical, then we're told to back off because it's not that bad, not that big of a deal. Like, what do you want us to do at this point? Because at this point, I frankly am just saying "f the world," because like, be critical, but don't be critical. Take it seriously, but don't really take it seriously. This is not your sport. You don't belong here. These are comments that I get regularly. That this isn't my sport. I don't belong here. So at the end of the day, do you want me to take the sport seriously or not? Do you want me to be critical when the U.S. men's national team is terrible? And I pointed many times when the U.S. men's national team is terrible. I've mentioned many times that I don't believe Christian Pulisic is a captain. I've said these things time and time again. And even the times that we were happy that Greg Berhalter got fired, we were told, hey, you guys should have just been happy that he was at least giving you guys some results. But you want us to take it seriously. Should we not be satisfied? Should we be satisfied with some results, or should we be wanting more from our national team? And I think that's like the contradictory thing that like kind of pisses me off, because it's like, take it seriously, but not really. Don't take it seriously, but we want you to take this game seriously. It make it make sense to me at this point. But the U.S. men's national team, like I said, there was a lot of aftermath that came in. Many have spoke out about this performance because it's not good. It's not good to see this. It is the lack of effort, the fact that this is quote unquote the most talented team the U.S. men's national team has ever had, the fact that you keep name dropping these players being affiliated to a lot of these big clubs in Europe. Mind you, the people that keep saying Christian Pulisic and AC Milan and Weston McKennie and Juventus, AC Milan and Juventus are not doing really well in Serie A right now. So I don't know if being a good player on a team that's not doing well is really that big of a flex. All right? Like, if they were doing well and playing, competing for the Scudetto, I would say, okay, yeah, now let's talk about it. But it's kind of hard to be saying that our players are doing great on a very mid team. Things like that. Like, you don't see, no one praises Cameron Carter-Vickers for being part of Celtic's dominance in the Scottish Premier League. But obviously that's also because of the Scottish Premier League. But at the same time, like, why don't we why don't we take more note of that? Like, versus we're having, and Celtic is a pretty big club when it comes to the world of football. But like, I get it. AC Milan has the brand name, the branding, the name itself, Milan, right? But right now, Milan does not look good. As a matter of fact, they have defensive issues, and instead of signing defensive players, they go out and get Santi Jimenez, which is perfectly fine on my behalf, because this was a player that I said keep an eye on. But and someone told me I was crazy for saying Santi Jimenez would be a player that might be going to Europe. But who am I? Anyways, but once again, we're being told all these things about this national team, how they're this and that and this and that, and then you bring in Mauricio Pochettino, a proper coach, all these things, and yet we get this kind of performance. There was no aggression, which is very tough to do when you're playing CONCACAF. You have to be aggressive. You have to be able to be physical. You have to put in some dog. You have to have dog mentality when you go into CONCACAF. And if you don't have it, you're not going to do well. The talent was in question. Once again, like, just even the way they were playing, like, playing through the back, things that you shouldn't be doing. Like, if you're the heavy favorite. The possessions were great, but they had no substance. Great, okay, you had majority possession of the game, but who cares when you're not scoring goals? If it lacks substance, no one cares. And that's when you need to be aggressive in that final third. Put one in the back of the net, or take shots, because eventually one of them is going to fall in, and that wasn't happening. Not even remotely happening for the U.S. men's national team. Obviously, Christian Pulisic was heavily criticized by the likes of Alexi Lalas, the likes of Tim Howard, the likes of Alejandro Moreno, Hercules Gomez, everyone being critical of Christian Pulisic, that he needs to step up more. He needs to be the face of the USA. The fact that he even has this stupid docuseries going on with CBS, like, you can't be doing these things and say and not wanting the spotlight. You're literally putting it out to the world that you want this documentary on you, which is very early, by the way, to narrate your life, essentially. But you're doing this super early, and I'm going to tell you this, that if you're saying you don't want the pressure on you, you don't want you don't want all the spotlight on you, like, you just want to be good old Christian Pulisic, you can't do that and have a docuseries. I am sorry. That is the most contradicting thing I've ever seen in my life. And look, you're given the captain's armband. At the end of the day, they believe in you to be the leader of this team. And you need to have more clear and somehow profounding post-game interviews. Like, take accountability. Just say, yeah, we were terrible. There's nothing wrong with saying, yeah, we sucked. We're going to get better. But no, you don't say that. You said, yeah, it's easy to point out the aggression. Yes, it was easy to point out the lack of aggression, because there was no lack of aggression. That's the easiest thing to point out. There's more things to point out. But the reality at the end of it all, like, just be more accountable. That's at the end of the day, that's what the captains do. They are accountable. And we didn't get that from Christian Pulisic, which, proves my point about that Christian Pulisic is simply just not a captain. He has just never, in my opinion, has been a captain to me. He can be our best player, and I'm perfectly fine saying that he is the U.S. men's national team's best player. I think maybe Anthony Robinson may make an argument, but he wasn't available for for this Nations League. And I think the other conversation involving Christian Pulisic, obviously, was he even playing in his best position? Mauricio Pochettino views him as a 10, similar to what he had with Christian Eriksen in Tottenham. But I mean, yes, Christian Pulisic does play the 10 for Milan from time to time, but we've all felt that he's more comfortable playing in the wing. Like, when he has space, he seems to be a more comfortable player. So why wouldn't you do that to his strengths? And that seems to be a Mauricio Pochettino problem. So when your talent isn't living up to the hype, or at least you're putting your talent in positions that maybe isn't really garnering them to their full potential, it is alarming. It is alarming, and that's why you need to have outrage and criticism on that part. And this goes to what's going on with the 2025 Gold Cup, which is coming this summer. It is, and it has to be a cup or bust at this point. It isn't, just go out there and compete. And I get it that there's going to be some conflicting issues, just because of the fact that, like, the FIFA Club World Cup is also it's going to happen before the Gold Cup. And so certain players will not be available because they'll be competing in that tournament. And I get that part, but you still got to go out there and put out your best 11, your best players available to compete in this, because, like I said, it is cup or bust. If you do not win the Gold Cup, because this is another competitive competition, we need to see this tournament be taken seriously by Mauricio Pochettino, by the players, to show that they give a damn about this U.S. men's national team, and they give a damn about putting a proper product, that they give a damn about this confederation that is CONCACAF. I know it's hard to take this confederation seriously with how stupid and corrupt this confederation can be, but at the end of the day, you play who's in front of you, and if you want to be frank, Mexico doesn't seem to have a problem being able to put their best foot forward when it comes to CONCACAF competitions. So you better do it as well. And even they will probably put out a B team. And I'm telling you right now, their B team will probably still make it to the final. And yes, U.S. men's national team B teams, you make it to the final. But now it is your job to make sure that you put in a strong push, because it's not just Mexico's team that you're competing with. Canada is going to be there. Panama is going to have their A team as long as they're all available for that competition. As long as none of them are playing in the Club World Cup. Panama is going to be there. And I think Saudi Arabia is also invited there, so that's kind of interesting. But yes, it is in fact cup or bust. And mind you, there's also friendlies before that Gold Cup, which is against Turkey and Switzerland. And I'm sure that they want to look good in those friendlies as well. Hey guys, this is Hector from the Insert Name FC podcast, here to tell you guys about Canada Dips. It is a great tasting, superior alternative to traditional dip using CBD in a way that is radical, enjoyable, and effective. It comes in 5 core flavors: wintergreen, mint, citrus, mango, and American spice. Canada Dip CBD is the new evolution in dip, allowing guys to enjoy great, long-lasting taste without the downsides. If you guys want to go ahead and try them out, use the code BELLYUP20 at CanadipCBD.com. Once again, BELLYUP20 at CanadipCBD.com, and you'll get yourself 20% off your purchase. Thank you again for Canada Dips for being a great partner of Belly Up Sports. Now, for all the people that are saying that, like, why are we being so critical about the U.S. men's national team? Like, you guys should be used to being terrible. That's not the truth. This U.S. men's national team, once again, we said it, most talented group of players, blah, blah, blah. At some point, we got to be able to see it at some point, right? So if they're not living up to the expectations, like how everyone's critical about the Mexican national team, how everybody's critical about the English national team, like, if you guys are going to be able to be critical about your national teams, we should be able to be just as critical of our U.S. men's national team. If they are not living up to the expectations, especially of this golden generation, which I've actually told many people that it is not the golden generation, we need to put pressure. We need to be critical about them. No more the days of having them be walking on eggshells. No, not walking on eggshells, not having to feel the pressure of the press. There needs to be pressure on these players. These players need to be crap. We need to start, they're really like grilling on us now. We got to start taking this seriously. It just needs to be done. And I'm tired of having this conversation over and over again about, I don't know if these players care. I don't know what I'm getting for this U.S. men's national team. This U.S. men's national team is overwhelming. I just want to be able to watch the U.S. men's national team beat a team they're supposed to beat, or at least should be. Once again, Panama. Everyone said that we should beat Panama. Well, beat the teams you're supposed to beat. And then when you go up against Mexico, when you go up against Canada, when you go against Panama, you put in your best foot forward. Like, if they lose to Panama outright because Panama was just a better team, I wouldn't have much complaints. But when there's just people missed opportunity after missed opportunity after missed opportunity, injuries aside, who cares? You still had Josh Sargent, who performs in the championship with Norwich. And it is the most irritating thing in the world that he can't score a goal for the U.S. men's national team, but can do it for Norwich City. Like, I get why the Argentinian fans were so angry at Lionel Messi when he couldn't perform for Argentina, but can score goals and be the greatest player in the world for Barcelona. Obviously, that's not so much the issue anymore. But yeah, I get that sentiment. So yes, be critical about the U.S. men's national team. There's nothing wrong with being critical about the U.S. men's national team. It needs to be done. It just simply needs to be done. All right, moving on to so Club Leon has been removed from the FIFA Club World Cup. The reason behind it is because there is a violation of multi-ownership rule that's being placed by FIFA. So if you guys don't know, Club Leon is part of Pachuca's group. So Club Pachuca, who is also competing in the FIFA Club World Cup. So because of that, that is why Club Leon is being removed from the tournament. They are both their own teams, but they are under the same umbrella, which is kind of funny when you think about it, because I believe MLS is kind of in some sense multi-owner as well. I think like I don't know how the MLS is done, but I think in some lines maybe also be violating this rule. But obviously they're not going to do that because they're doing it in the U.S. here. Leon is obviously appealing, as they should. I mean, this team did outright win the 2023 CONCACAF Champions Cup. It's ridiculous that you're doing this. Like I don't understand why FIFA waited. Like it's March. It's March. And the tournament starts in, I believe, June. And now you're like, hey, yeah, that team is owned by two teams. I'm just saying that's just kind of weird. So the timing is all weird. Leon earned their spot. They earned it by winning the CONCACAF Champions Cup, which is what technically all the other teams were supposed to be doing, I guess. With some extent to like the teams from Europe. But FIFA, you're really gonna miss out on an opportunity to have James Rodriguez, in a FIFA sanctioned tournament. James Rodriguez, who's usually must watch TV in FIFA World Cups, you're gonna let that guy not be in the tournament? I'm just saying. So obviously, with Leon's gonna make an appeal. If they don't end up making an appeal, there has been some clubs that are kind of putting their names out there for that Club World Cup spot. You have Tigres, who's recently won some Liga MX titles. I believe have also won some CONCACAF Champions Cup before. Then you have the LA Galaxy, who just recently won the 2024 MLS Cup, and I think a lot of LA Galaxy fans feel like to some extent they deserve to be in this tournament, being the fact that they won the MLS Cup, and it shouldn't be Inter Miami because they won the MLS Cup and Inter Miami won the Supporter Shield, which once again in MLS really holds no value. So, but in reality, if you were to ask me right now, the LA Galaxy is terrible. So I don't know if I want to see them in this tournament being representing the MLS because I don't think it's going to pan out well. LAFC is another team that's also in the conversation. They were the team that lost to Club Leon in the 2023 CONCACAF Champions Cup, so it would, in some sense, make sense that the runner-up from that competition is to represent them. And the final team, at least that I'm pointing out, is Club America, who has now won 3 consecutive Liga MX titles and are currently viewed as the highest-ranked CONCACAF club. I think Club America is obviously more marketable. I think Club America is very much loaded. And obviously, I think their recent resume does speak volumes, right? I think in reality, the final spot should go to a CONCACAF nation because it is a CONCACAF team that got eliminated, that is getting eliminated in this tournament, that's getting removed from this tournament. Like, it shouldn't be any other team. And if I had to say who it should be, I think it's either LAFC or Club America. Those are the two teams that I'm actually giving it to. Because, one, like I said, LAFC has a point because they were the runner-up for that 2023 CONCACAF Champions Cup. And was Club America right now, they're best in their form. And like I said, highest-ranked CONCACAF club. Like, they're the best team in CONCACAF right now. Why wouldn't you want them? And once again, if you want, and I mean, data, you can make an argument for its marketability as well. But if you want all eyes, especially from that Mexican audience, Club America is the team. And I think that, like I said, ideally Club Leon should be the one representing, should be in this tournament. But if Club Leon does not get its appeal approved, if they don't win their appeal, I believe it's being discussed that LAFC and Club America will play for it, which I think makes the most sense. I think LAFC, once again, like I said, they were the runner-ups for that year, and Club America. I'll be honest with you, the way LAFC is looking, Club America is going to win this game. So I think Club America will be going on to the Club World Cup if it happens. If this all happens, I do think Club Leon will win their appeal and will be in the tournament. But if it doesn't happen, I think the winner between LAFC and Club America is very fitting. Um, I would give the edge to Club America. I would kind of want it to be Club America, being that it is a Liga MX team. Like I would, like no offense to the MLS people, but like the Eli Lesters of the world, but you, I just don't know if LAFC would be a good representation. Same thing with the Galaxy right now. I don't know if they would be good representations for the MLS. I mean, I'd rather want CONCACAF I'd rather CONCACAF get a good representation, and Club Medica would be that good representation um, in this tournament versus LAFC, who looks pretty overwhelming. And I mean, LA Galaxy, they're not looking too much better either. So that's just that. But like I said, to summarize it all, I still want Club Leon to go on to the next round. But if not, I wouldn't be mad if it's Club America. So there's that. We're gonna go ahead and take a break, and then you'll hear me and Jose recap MLS Onside episode 6.
Fight and win!
All right, guys, MLS Onside episode 6. We are now 2 episodes away from the finale. I guess 2 episodes away from the finale of this series. And I will say it's a bit of an upgrade from last week. Bit of an upgrade, not too much, but obviously I got Jose Tellez from Goals TV coming in and doing this series with me. And before we get to MLS Onside, man, I need to hear your thoughts, man. We talked about this guy when we were talking about the Sporting Kansas City and St. Louis video, but the guy that I quoted as a terrorist at Sporting Kansas City, the bad man's gone for Sporting KC. Obviously you'll see it on Goals TV as well. The thoughts on everybody from Wake Up MLS, but initial thoughts, man. The bad man's gone.
Bad man's gone. He was here a lot longer than he should have been. Honestly, bro, it's crazy that the Dallas game is what set him over. You know what I mean? Like what set the front office over the edge. Like, if anything, this is probably the one games in the early part of the season they could actually be competitive in. I feel like Sporting Kansas City for years has always kind of had somewhat of our number. They've done pretty well against Dallas. And this is not that great of a Dallas team just yet. They haven't gelled, even if it is Lucho Acosta, who had a banger, by the way. I mean, it's weird. I could have seen, like, had he gotten fired after a 7-0 ass whooping against LAFC, like, okay, yeah, respect, bro. I mean, like embarrassed like that, he's got to go. But I feel like they've been dealing with this kind of mediocrity, losing 2-1 on the road to a team that they're supposed to be competitive with. Bro, this is all the last 2 or 3 years. It's just, again, the timing is a little bit weird, but bro, he needed to be gone. Um, Bro, in all honesty, Jim Curtin's name should be coming up a lot in this search, 100%. If I was any SKC fan out there, a guy who could do a lot with a little, because that's what Sporting KC has to offer right now. You have the added benefit of having guys like Shaloy and Joveljic up top. So I don't know. I feel like he could do something over there, but outside of that, bro, I think the fans are just happy that Big Pete is out of there.
Yeah, no, it's insane. I think that this was long overdue. I think 2023 earned him some leeway, which is crazy to say that, especially when you started the way you started that year, which was a terrible first 10 games for them. Um,
Equally impressive finish, though. Equally
Equally
impressive
impressive
finish.
finish. I mean, you win the wild card, and then you go and beat your rival in the round one. But aside from that, man, I don't know. This was like I think last year. I don't think there was any redeeming qualities from the team. Like I said, Peter Vermes is just a straight up terrorist. Like he just had I don't know what he had hostage on this KC staff. I mean, when we go back to that episode, literally the owner was like, "Yeah, we probably could have fired him at some point, but we didn't." And like, I mean, you're gonna have new coach bounce if they hire a coach right away or whoever the interim guy is. I'm sure that could be something that's gonna be talked about at some point. But
Yeah.
at the same time, man, it's like you could have just fired him, when the season ended, this last year, and you could have gone with a new coach. And at least if they were not panning out, you could be like, well, new system, new players, blah blah blah. I don't know, man. I feel like KC kind of held themselves a bit back here.
Yeah, I think in their defense, if there's any defense here, I think they wanted to give it one more shot with Vermes only because they gave him. I think the leg he always had to stand on, if you will, is, hey man, this team has been declining for a few years now. Y'all haven't really given me a real piece to go out there with, right? Like a real piece. They acquire Joveljic, and it's like, all right, man, there's no more excuses. Like at this point, we're giving you, the guy who's bagging goals in the MLS Cup final just last season. Now it's going to be when we want you to produce something, right? It doesn't have to be MLS Cup contender right off the bat, but you got to be competitive. And they were nowhere near that. Joveljic touched the ball, must have been like 15 times total in that game against Dallas, of all teams. Very mid team right now. And now that I talk myself through that part of it, I could see where they probably just had enough. But again, to play devil's advocate, I could see why at the beginning of the year they're like, all right, maybe Peter has a point. We gave him a new shiny toy to play with, didn't pan out. We got to try and turn the season around while there's still enough time. So I'll be curious to see who they get in there.
Yeah, for sure. And we'll see, man. Obviously makes sense to talk about that just a little bit, just because of the fact that this episode of MLS Onside is very general manager specific, and obviously just supporting Kansas City, the GM, or I guess sporting director, depending on how you feel. Essentially, GM sporting director is essentially the same job. It's just American sports, we call them general managers, and I think in the across the pond, it is a sporting director. So I think that that's just really what it is. But anyways,
Yeah.
this episode is very pointed towards general managers, and maybe not as in depth as I hoped. And I think that's gonna be my one complaint. So MLS Onside, episode 6, The Window. Clubs go hunting for new talent in the summer transfer window, where deals get done or fall apart, and stars arrive in the month-long frenzy. Look, it's not crazy to say this, but at this point, MLS has always tried to lure big names, and I think the episode was a little bit reaching when they were saying that Messi is what started the path. I think that's a bit of a stretch. I think this all goes back to you know, and I'll even say before MLS, NASL, you go and get Pele, we talked about the New York Cosmos last time a little bit. They kind of dug themselves to a really deep hole because of them trying to go after some of the best players in the world at that time, and obviously a lot of Brazilians. But I mean, it worked, just not so
Yeah.
much on the finances side, but it worked. And I think that's always been the thing for America, is like, how do we lure the big name? And obviously, you go back to that LA Galaxy team that brought in David Beckham, and I feel like that's really where it all started, because then, you got Thierry Henry with Red Bull New York. You got David Villa, even though maybe not the best name to use right now, but NYCFC, and then the list goes on and on. I mean, you know, maybe not all the sexiest names out there, but I thought it was pretty cool to say that we had a Matuidi even here in the MLS. A
Yeah.
guy, something a guy, any other guy would know about. So I think
Yeah.
honestly, it starts off with Beckham when it comes to MLS.
I agree. That's the point I was going to make, was I think a player of a person, not even a player, just a person of Messi stature coming through the league, David Beckham, easily. I think that, look, anybody who's like, nah, this is not even close, brother, you got to remember that Facebook was like 3 years old when Beckham came through the league. Like, could you imagine if social media was as fully fledged out as it is today, fully scaled up as it is today? It's not, bro. Beckham was a Hollywood A-lister through and through. There were tons of people, not even soccer fans, just people in America who knew who he was, that I'm sure didn't even know he was a footballer. Like they just recognized him through his modeling or through his wife being a Spice Girl, or like whatever the case may be. The guy was universally known as a brand, right? So Messi too, but again, I don't think Messi was necessarily as prominent outside of what he did on the pitch as Beckham was, right? Like he was everywhere, literally. So again, just different eras. You can't really compare them, but that was the entry point. We've seen a ton of very prominent European stars in MLS prior to Messi's arrival. I think the coolest part about this, though, is that they are right about one thing changing when Messi got here, and that's just the type of talent that MLS has attracted, right? Look at who's the young player Miami had? Gomez, right? Angel Gomez, I think it was, who went on to Brighton right afterward, right? And I had, creator friends in the UK asking me, like, hey, who's this Gomez kid? Like I saw he really wasn't part of Miami before then. Like what happened? This is the type of talent. We're almost kind of reverse engineering it now through Messi, and that's to me what's been the most impressive part. But I see what they're doing, bro. They got to glaze Messi whenever they can, just like the league does, and at the end of the day, they're not totally wrong. It's just again, there's to me, there's an also a pretty big entry point through Beckham.
No, yeah, for sure. And so, like I said, this episode's mainly focused on like general managers and obviously the transfer window. And the reason why I maybe have overly hyped this episode going into this episode, even before watching it, is because I don't know what it is about me. I just love the strategy implemented by general managers, like how they're approached. Obviously, if you guys want to know about a little bit about my American sports background as far as my teams go, I am a Houston Nationals fan. Jeff Lunau, who was a general manager mastermind who fixed the farm system for the Astros and then made them the team that they were that ended up winning, two World Series, one under his belt and one after, he got fired because of the whole cheating scandal. And now he got FC Cancun a trophy for in the Liga MX, the second division. Obviously, they can't get promoted. Because no one talks about how Mexico has a closed system, but and also is the president of Leganes. So, and
It's
I mean,
crazy, right?
little controversy happened there with Real Madrid, but hey, if it ain't controversy, it ain't La Liga. So,
What a jab. I like that.
but yeah, so GMs, I've always been intrigued on like the whole strategy and how they approach because there's both like I think the beauty about this game and kind of similar to baseball, there's more multiple ways of building a strong team. Whether it's you build through the farm system, maybe suck for a very long time, three straight 100 plus loss seasons. That's it. That's all I gotta say. Um, then draft pick after draft pick, and then building what was considered one of the best or contradicting or maybe conflicting dynasties in Houston's history. But at the same time, like I like the strategy, go after the big names or go and develop players. I think it's all interesting in that aspect. I mean, one of my favorite movies is Moneyball, and so much as I don't want to say I like this movie, Draft Day is kind of interesting to me,
I
even
was gonna
though
say that this man watched Draft Day before he watched this episode of Onside. Holy.
and that movie stinks, but I like it. I don't know why. The plot is terrible.
Yeah,
It's
it's kind of movie cheesy too, like Disney movies, to an extent. Disney real life movies, you know what I mean? Like we're just like that would never happen.
there's no way that would happen.
There's no world where that actually happens. Yeah, Draft Day is one of those movies, 100%, bro.
Yeah, but yeah, so
But
like
go ahead, go ahead.
no, yeah, but yeah, so like the general manager position or sporting director position, I think is one that I find really intriguing because you can go multitude of ways. You can either just say F the coach, I'm gonna do what I want to do, or you collaborate with the coach, or sometimes you have teams that like Peter Vermes, who was also the general manager of Sporting Kansas City. And I mean, it's not always bad. I mean, as someone that you know, Wolverine memes Dominic Kinnear now at this point in my life. That guy was the general manager and coach of the Dynamo for a lot of the good years, and then stupid Matt Jordan joined, and then since then, it is what it is. But
Yep.
but yeah, like I mean, we've seen multitude of ways, but obviously, I overly hyped this episode because of my intrigue with general managers or sporting directors. Jose, how did you? Were you the general manager position? Does that anything ever intrigue you in any way about that one?
Yeah, bro. I would say I didn't let this bias, this expectation go into me watching it, but I will say that like a dream job. As someone who very much enjoys strategizing behind the scenes in sport, like that would be a dream position, like a dream role career wise. Because I'm not a coach, right? Like a lot of people who say GM's like a dream job, it's because they know they're not coaches. I was a former player, but I'm not a coach. I know that right off the bat. My personality is not that way. Um, a GM would be a dream job, man. So, but again, I didn't let that factor in. I tried to watch, and I kept telling myself the whole way through, this is just so surface level. This is so. You saw one call between the coach and the GM of Charlotte. You saw him kind of explaining the role more so than him actually doing the role. And I don't know, man. I guess maybe again, maybe we're not the target fan base for this series to an extent. 'Cause I feel like as the episodes have gone on up to this point, we've gotten a little more critical of them.
Hmm.
This is purely for the person who doesn't understand maybe one, the hierarchy of professional soccer as far as like career goes, but two, even just professional sports. It felt like it was dumbed down for the person who is truly a casual on all levels. And that's not a bad thing, but as someone who really like you, Hector, wanted to see just the ins and outs, what's it like to be a fly on the wall for some of those conversations? We just didn't really get that. It didn't, like I said before we went on air tonight, like I thought maybe scripted, but now that I think about it a little bit more, it just, they kept it very, very surface level and focused more so on the stories around the players that were being targeted, which I can see why they went in that direction. But as someone who was, yeah, looking to get a little bit behind the scenes, kind of like we get through a hard knock series on draft day or like whatever the case may be, phone calls getting made, a war room scene if possible. Yeah, man, didn't get really any of that. None of that strategizing. Got one team meeting in there where there was some really weird quote thrown out by the GM that he referenced it, his dad said or something, Zoran. And that's really it. Like it was, and Dean Smith kind of disagreeing with it a little bit. But that's all we got, bro. That's all we got. I was like, all
Yeah.
right,
Yeah, because
I
I
don't know.
mean, and obviously the Charlotte FC is definitely going to be the focal point, but we do have LAFC and LA Galaxy featured on this, and in those teams, you didn't have Thornton reaching out to Cherundolo. That would have been hilarious just to hear that interaction because Thornton seems to be like a bro in some sense. I think that's what I got the vibe from him, and obviously Cherundolo is I don't know. I have no idea what this guy is. Like, he's interesting. I would have, you talk about obviously, with goals, you guys have Eric Winalda. I would love some Cherundolo stories from that guy to because I think I get a better grasp of who
Yeah.
Cherundolo really is because I like in his press conferences. I mean, he's very just complains. He's naggy. That's what I'm getting from
Mm.
it. But then obviously, LA Galaxy is also featured in this episode as well. But the thing is that what I think people don't maybe if you don't understand the transfer window, especially like MLS standpoint, there is a challenge, and that is that January transfer window. You have literally a month to try to figure out who you want to get, bring into this team to come in and do the whole preseason training and get gel with the team. Ideally, this is where you would want to bring your marquee DPs or designated players for people that don't know what DP means. And it's kind of hard because especially if you're trying to get a guy from that's playing currently in Europe, they're in mid-season. They're either competing for a cup title or maybe, obviously hope maybe they're still in the Champions League conversation. So it's really hard to get these players in January because of the fact that hey, I'm competing for a cup. Like
Mhm.
for instance, not Real Madrid, the Houston Dynamo when they were trying to get Hector Herrera, they couldn't get Hector Herrera in January because he was with Atletico Madrid. Atletico Madrid had hopes that they could win La Liga. And I think they did win La Liga that year. So so Ache they couldn't get him until the summer transfer window, which I think maybe obviously easier to get these players, but I think the interesting factor that comes in with the summer transfer window is like the second wind, right? Like maybe your team's in a promising position in as far as playoff seeding goes. You add in that big home run designated player, and now you're in a very stronger playoff position. So the
Yeah.
strategy with the transfer window in MLS, it's different, but I think it's intriguing as a GM of how you strategize and how you prioritize these transfer windows.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think January is hard for everybody, right? That's the first thing, right? I think for those who don't understand how the transfer windows work, it is important to understand that January is difficult for MLS teams, but it's also difficult for anybody overseas for the reasons Hector listed, and just because at the end of the day, clubs at the same time, if you're on path for something, you've obviously made a goal for yourself at the beginning of each season. If you're on path to reach those goals, to let go of a pivotal piece in the middle of the season is usually going to just require a lot. And not that clubs wouldn't give these players up, right? Is that can MLS actually offer something in January that would convince a club to let that player go? Because you do in January, you'll almost always, unless it's a player who's not on the same page with their manager, maybe forcing their way out, or again, just not a pivotal piece in that side, more of a depth player. maybe those targets are a little bit easier, more low-hanging fruit, and that way it's not quite as expensive. But usually, to pry a pivotal player from a club's hands requires a lot more money in January than it does in the summer when they have time to backfill that player to replace them in some way, at least numbers wise. Um, and therefore a little less expensive. So summer's always the biggest window, by far. And we'll follow it this season at Major League Soccer with Griezmann as a perfect example. Griezmann still debating whether or not he's going to come to MLS, but every fan, especially those LAFC fans, are ready for him to kind of make a decision as the summer nears. And I'm sure they're wanting some reinforcements this season, and he could be that for them, right? And that's a whole different talking point. But yeah, bro, this I think this episode of Onside did a pretty good job of getting that point across, and then also on the same time highlighting a couple targets that these teams are all going after. You had two teams in one big market in LA, LAFC and the Galaxy fighting for their own targets. LAFC kind of locking up Giroud pretty early. They established that really early in the episode. And then Charlotte FC versus the Galaxy kind of locking horns over Marco Reus. And that's really how it played out. Remember, Hector, we were all following that shit last season, had no idea where Reus was going to end up being, but we all kind of figured, right? Like, I feel like when LA comes calling and you're coming from Europe, I'm not sure how attractive life in suburban East Coast is really going to be.
No, yeah, and I think that I think I love how that's how they set it up with this episode where you have LAFC already, it was, and I think it very much was a very effortless. There was no real like discussions to try to get Olivier Giroud into LAFC. I think where he is at in his career, where his point is with AC Milan, like he just wasn't part of their future plans. Why not come to MLS? Why not go to LA? And I'm sure LA was the destination that he wanted to go to anyways, and gets to play for LAFC, has the little press conference. And at that point, LAFC in a very prominent position to win the Western Conference, which that's what they actually ended up doing. Maybe not because of Olivier Giroud, just because the team is built already fairly well.
Definitely
Um,
not because of Giroud.
Definitely not because of Giroud, but and I think that kind of builds the pressure for the Galaxy, where a team that I think many people feel that for last year was built fairly well, and maybe they're just like, well, we got to compete with these guys. We need to go get ourselves our home run hitter, at least what we're hoping it to be, and who knows what were their options? I would have loved to have seen like maybe them talking like who could we try to lure, and then maybe they're like, hey, you know what? Reus and the rumors were Reus does want to come to MLS. Like MLS was where he wanted to end up going after leaving Borussia Dortmund for so many years. And I mean, guys, I'm gonna be honest with you. The days of a player playing for one club for their whole life, that's gonna be a unicorn at this point because um, let's face it, a lot of these guys come from, South America, they come over, so they're obviously not going to be a one club guy. But I think it is interesting to see his story at least, and then yeah, I think Marco Rose was a lot of teams were interested in Marco Rose. Not only was it Charlotte FC, but and LA Galaxy, but I believe St. Louis was also in the conversation of going to get the German.
What a
But
what a jab at St. Louis, by the way. Didn't even factor them into the
it,
conversation for this episode. Said, fuck it, it's just Charlotte and the Galaxy.
And I'm like, it wouldn't have been that hard because you were already interviewing the director for St. Louis. Like how you couldn't just I mean you randomly had Pat Noonan share his thoughts on on Kevin Sullivan. I mean, it would have been easy like, yeah, we were trying for him, but he just really didn't want to be here. Like even if you gave that, like you made it seem like it was just these two teams that were going out. No, there was other teams that were very much in the race. And I mean,
Righteous Felon Craft Jerky is the official jerky of Belly Up Sports. For over a decade, Righteous Felon Craft Jerky has led the American meat snack revolution by concocting delicious, adventurous, U.S.-sourced jerky recipes for uncompromising carnivores across the country. With 15 different flavors to choose from, Righteous Felon has all jerky lovers covered, and by using promo code BELLYUP, you will get 15% off your purchase at righteousfelon.com. Do your taste buds a favor today and rip into a bag of Righteous Felon jerky.
Zoran kind of mentioned it. Zoran, aka Z. I think he was very interesting. I actually really like Zoran because
I do too.
it's the agent turned GM, you know. Maybe in Europe or overseas, maybe that's unique, but like obviously here in the, we got Todd McShay, GM of the, well, I guess he's not an agent, but an analyst being the GM of the Las Vegas Raiders. I think the Lakers have Kobe's old agent now. He's the GM, Rob
Hmm.
Pelinka. I
Yep.
think he's the GM for the Lakers. So shoot, we've had guys on TV that become head coaches. Like like it to us is not outside the norm, but I think being an agent and understanding how the discussions go with sporting directors and players, I think could be an asset. And I think it's intriguing that he decided like I want to be a GM out of nowhere. After representing guys like Drogba, to
Yeah.
be like, hey, I want to try to make an MLS contender.
Yeah, I think Zoran Z is a legacy guy. I really do. I think he you don't take a job halfway to a place that you've never heard of halfway across the world as the first GM ever in the club's history without being like some sort of an ambitious legacy guy, right? And I think with Z, man, I liked him too. I think the way he talked, the way he explained what the position is, why he felt like you said he was a great fit for the role, right? He had this long-standing agent career, working directly with players hand in hand, and a lot of those skills transfer directly to the roles of a sporting director or a GM, right? The other part is the strategy part, the long-term part, having a vision for what you want the team to look like in 5, 10 years, not just what's it look like this season, next season. That's the hard part that I think a lot of GMs still get wrong consistently. And of course, we didn't get those insights, right? Because Charlotte's still very much a new expansion club. But I think that based on, again, right, we heard them say it in the episode, the way he convinced Dean Smith to be the new manager after Dean initially told him no. The way he convinced veteran Ashley Westwood, who spent 10 plus years in the Premier League, to do the same thing Dean did, right? Or even that he did and move halfway across the world for this opportunity. So, so yeah, man, I think all in all, he's probably in the exact role he needs to be in for that club to help them get where they want to go. And I would say it's working out well. If you watch the episode, you know that Reus was in a tug of war, I guess you could say, between the Galaxy and Charlotte FC. Ultimately opted for the bigger market, despite it being the lower offer. And Hector, we talked about it before the show, man. I feel like as much as I'm sure he took it as a huge L, and bro, I can only imagine, right? Like that is your target, probably your biggest or your lone target for the entire summer. Your entire strategy is built around this one guy, and he takes the lower offer, right? You have the most competitive offer in the market, and he accepts the lower one. I can only imagine what that must have felt like. With that said, though, um, I think he won, bro. I think at least as of today, at least we sit here and talk where Giroud's the next to nothing for LAFC. Royce, same thing, and not just for the Galaxy, and not just that, but Zoran, he went out and didn't make it a complete failure of a summer, right? Went out and got Tim Ream. A lot of people thought that might have been redundant because Charlotte FC proved to be a good defensive team last season, but he still is shoring them up in the back, right? With all of his experience. And then from there, right, made a good decision going out to get Wilfred Zaha, who I believe is an infinitely better attacker than either Royce or Giroud. And so many GMs, I think what people don't talk about is so many GMs panic in moments like that, right? Think about it. Your entire plan is Marco Royce. He leaves. You have built up the fan base. There's so many rumors going out from Bogert and every other fan journalist out there around Royce potentially choosing Charlotte, and then he doesn't. And then this fan base feels kind of let down. I think there's so many GMs, especially newer ones, who would decide, you know what? Let's quickly pivot. Let's go to someone else. Get a sexy name. I don't care who they are. Let's sign them up. And they didn't.
And that's how
He,
you
he
get
just,
Cuauhtémoc Blanco. And that's how you end up with a Cuauhtémoc Blanco.
But bro, think about it. Even if you translate this to the Premier League, it's like every Arsenal fan is an example, like screaming on Twitter about Arteta and the front office not making moves, when in reality, those who panic end up sacrificing much more in the long term than they do in the short term, aka Manchester United. And so
I
and
mean,
their
if
way
you
to
want
get
to think about like panic moves for Arsenal, like I mean, there was a point that Arsenal was just known for their panic moves. I mean,
yeah.
Mkhitaryan.
Bro, like so many types of players over the years, you're like, you know what? They were probably the hot name at some tournament, and we just decided to drop a bag on them, and it didn't work out. That's such a tale as old as time. So I think where Zoran showed that he's maybe a sound GM, we didn't get a lot of insights there. It kind of just briefly showed when they missed out on Reus that, oh hey, by the way, still got somebody. Here's Tim Ream. You just saw the jersey, like his name and number on it. That's pretty cool. But I thought that was a big deal. Like you guys still had I would say of the three teams they featured in this episode, the best transfer window. They did. It might not have been the
Yeah,
sexiest
that
name,
whole
but they
Andrew
won it.
Wiebe sound clip, sound bite, whatever that. Fuck you. And so I was just look. I love Andrew Wiebe. He's a passionate guy, and no offense to him. It's just like the losers. Really, that was the loser. Like, I mean, yes, Tim adding another defender, but you're talking about a vocal leader in the back line. I don't think many people would say no to that. And that's just my honest opinion on that part. Um, but yeah, I think to me, like, yes, at the end of it, in that moment, and you're correct. Hindsight's always 2020. You look back at it now, you got Wilfred Zaha, an actual forward. No offense to Marco Reus, but he's kind of like what, a 10 or a winger, depending
Hmm.
on how you want to how
Very
you view him
versatile.
now. Um, whereas Charlotte and you and me were always saying it during last season, I was like, this team needs a striker. They just need to go get
Hmm.
themselves a guy that can score the goals, while they have this amazing defense. And we kept saying it like, oh, go make sure you guys go get somebody. And yeah, it was unfortunate they didn't go get the guy. But aside from that, they were still a very good defensive unit, and that's why they were able to still make a push for the playoffs. But yeah, I mean, who knows if they would have had that nine, different story. I don't know if Reus would have completed that Charlotte team, and I think, like you said, they dodged a huge bullet with him, especially if you saw Reus just staring at a goal happening in that one LA Galaxy. He's been checked out. I think very much checked out. There's no pride in him right now. Obviously he got mad at MLS because he was trying to figure out how we're losing players when we're a championship team. I get it, but and I think it's crazy that they took the agent took, well, I guess not the agent, but Ruse chose a lesser deal because of the destination.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that. I can see why someone would do it at any point in their career, right? It's like family. I want my family to be happy. I want them to be super comfortable. I want them to have a great first experience in America, whatever that may be, right? I understand that piece. I agree with you. He might be checked out. I don't know why. I don't know why he would. I mean, winning a chip in your first year has something to do with it. Um, but yeah, I mean, look, at the end of the day, one thing a lot of people missed who may have watched this episode already is that at the end of the day, every one of these three signings that were referenced, Giroud, Marco Reus, and Tim Ream, they were all depth pieces in reality. Like Will Kuntz said it for the Galaxy himself. When they thought about adding someone to the mix, they thought about veteran leadership. They thought about somebody who could take the load off with how many games they had coming up, and the level wouldn't drop, right? Like he talked about Royce like a depth player. The GM, I can't remember his name, you mentioned earlier, from LAFC, who talked about Giroud.
Oh,
He mentioned,
Thornton.
yeah, he mentioned how like a team, would he rather have a team with or without Giroud, whether he played a ton of minutes or not? He feels like a championship team would rather have Giroud. And which leads me to believe that like he doesn't know what kind of role he was supposed to have, but at his age, maybe being the guy week in and week out is not feasible. And then you have Tim Ream, which we all know, right? How seasoned he is, right? How much of a veteran he is. I would argue he's had more minutes than either one of those two guys and been more consistent on the pitch when getting those minutes. So yeah, man. I mean, like I said, they were all depth pieces. At the end of the day, the LA market teams just ended up signing sexy names, and therefore they look like they won the transfer window. And from MLS's perspective, with how young we are as a league, that is winning to an extent, right? Like you got to put asses in seats, bro. I mean, that is winning. But at the same time, right? And while Galaxy might have lifted their chip as it wasn't due to Royce, I think they could have won it without him.
He wasn't
But
even he wasn't even starting. So
exactly. Yeah. So they could have won it without, in my opinion. Maybe he contributed a little bit off the bench as an impact player. I didn't watch every Galaxy game last season, but I can confidently say like Tim Ream is an established piece of Charlotte's back line. And by being a little more patient, I think, despite the L, I think Zoran came away with a W in this one.
No, yeah, for sure. But I think I think the only concern that I have now for MLS heading, going forward is just that my concern now is are these players that obviously aren't very familiar with America. And I mean, let's be honest, anybody outside of America, and I can even say this for someone that has a lot of family in El Salvador, when they think of America, they think of LA, New York, and Miami.
Yeah.
Like they think of those places. They don't know about a Kansas. They don't know about uh I'm trying to think of another like kind of peculiar place. I don't want to say Missouri again, but but like basically like they don't know what other things have to offer. The unique cultures. I think it's funny. Like for instance, with the Houston Dynamo, I think it's funny seeing them like learn about what throwing up the H means. Like these guys, and then all of a sudden, that's all you see these guys do from for the rest of the time. Every time they post a picture, like they love it. They just like, hey, this is cool. You know,
That's crazy, bro. That's
uh,
actually, I mean, it's a good point though.
it's funny as hell. Like, I mean, Achi still throws up the H. I think it's funny as hell. Like,
Reps it till he dies, bro.
yeah. Like, I mean, when he did his intro to Toluca, he literally threw up the H's. He's ever since like this guy's from Houston. Next thing you know, he's got the double cup, the double cup and some blades on his rims.
That's crazy,
Got
bro.
some
I
swangers.
mean, yeah, Houston has that impact. I think he got a lasting effect on players that walk through 100%, bro.
But and so my concern, obviously at this point, is like how many of these players that hey, I'm gonna go play in the MLS. How many of them are going to be turned off by the opportunity of playing for Toronto, turned off by the idea of playing for a Kansas City or even
Bro,
a Colorado?
they wouldn't be turned off if they just knew what happens in those cities. You know why no one knows anything about Charlotte? Because I'll be honest, bro, there's just not that much content coming out of Charlotte. There's some creators who are doing stuff. There's some, studio or I should say networks who are covering Charlotte FC to an extent, right? But like this league just needs a lot more PR, and Messi was the start of that. But we got to start getting market specific, bro. There's just not enough stories being told from any one of these smaller market teams to make them stand out when these other players are looking for a spot to play. Like, bro, I'm still mind blown. This is not even like a giant name. I don't think many MLS fans knew who this was before he came to MLS, but I'm mind blown that Patar Musa is playing for Dallas. I really am. He was literally 24 years old at Benfica, coming off the bench, but like still playing in first team games. And this man in his prime decided to come to Dallas. I was like, that's weird. That's just
No,
weird.
I get those things, and I think that I think I'm trying to think about when we did. I think it was when we picked like team players that we could see come to the MLS.
Yeah,
I feel like was Zaha featured on that or
yeah.
no
hmm
was Zaha was.
We had Zaha on it. Yeah,
Yeah, and I think I featured I think one of the Ayew brothers. That I think I threw up one of their names. I think the
yeah.
one that plays in Crystal Palace, and I was just like, he's a guy that if you know the Prem, this guy is good for some must watch TV on the occasion, things like that. And it's like obviously the thing is they're trying to go find a David Beckham when in reality there's only one David Beckham, just like there's only one Lionel Messi. Like
Yep.
it to me, it'd still be funny as hell the idea of Cristiano Ronaldo in Kansas City.
That
But
bro,
like,
that would have been amazing. Just watching him step off the plane to experience Kansas for the first time would have been, or Kansas City for the first time would have been amazing. I'd have paid
he would have thought
actual
he
money
was
for
in the
that.
state of Kansas.
Dude walked into Wizard of Oz or some shit. Like I would have loved to have seen the look on his face. I would have paid good money to see it. 100%.
And I think that to me was like, okay, he picked not a known market, Like, like I said, not many of these guys in Europe know about Kansas City. I'm sure they don't know anything about Tech Nine. Like, like like I'm
Hey, but
sure
he has some bangers though.
I'm sure I mean he did drop a World Cup the Kansas City World Cup song.
Makes
That's
sense.
a
Honestly, I didn't even know that, but like I know Tech Nine has some bangers in general. But anyway, neither here nor there.
it's part of my Get Hype playlist. Uh,
Yeah.
I mean, like Chicago might be one that everyone knows about because of Michael Jordan. Um,
Mm.
like, but as far as outside of that, it's New York, Miami, and LA. I don't know if there's any other regions, and I think that that's gonna suck if that's gonna be something that holds back a lot of these MLS teams because maybe the player's like, no, I want to play for LA.
Yeah. You know what's crazy? Chicago's a big soccer market, just not a big MLS market.
hmm I think
That's the best way to put it.
that's Houston. Houston's also Houston's also one of those. I'm assuming that anything that has like a Hispanic like root in it, I
Yeah.
think is gonna be it's a soccer city. It's just well, I'll say this: the U.S. is in fact a football nation. It is not a soccer nation, if that makes any sense.
It does. Yeah, yeah. It's I don't know. It's weird. There's some markets that embrace MLS really well, um, but there's more than a few that don't that are still pretty big sports markets. You know, like I actually feel like even though Revs are like a 1.0 club too, um, they're not really that supported yet. I think Boston as a sports market is massive. Chicago kind of the same thing. But I mean, I know for a fact, even at the youth levels, there are some real ballers in Chicago. Um,
I gotta see some of
and
them.
yeah, bro, and it's literally just like, yeah, yeah. If they do make it, they go on to play somewhere else. They don't play here.
hmm No, it's an honest fact. I mean, the whole debates of if the U.S. is really a football nation, in reality, it's not. Like that's just the cold God's honest truth. They're just not. It's not a proper football nation. It's a soccer nation. You know, like that's what it is. Like I think it is fitting that that's what they call it. You know, soccer. Like get mad, Brits. But it's the best way to call it. That's what Americans do. They play soccer. They don't play football. They don't play in that tactics at all. Like they just F it. He's up there. Go get send it to him.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's facts. 100%.
So yeah, I agree with that. I think more, but now you're seeing a little bit more of football kind of going into it as well now with a lot of the guys that are dual Hispanic country slash Americans that are choosing U.S. I think that you're going to start seeing some of that football influence coming into play. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's still a soccer nation, and um, you know, that's a whole conversation for a whole other day. But yeah, man, I think that this episode was okay. It wasn't terrible. Like I said, I overhyped it myself just because of the fact that like GMs, I just want more in-depth GM stuff, and I think I still got like a little bit out of it. But I think for someone that doesn't understand like transfer windows, I think it's very educational. I think it was very educational. I think you can leave with something knowing about this episode.
Yeah, yeah. Again, it's a good starting point to understanding like the role of that person in the club, the GM or the sporting director, how pivotal like these transfer windows really are to their job at the end of the day. Like they spend all year preparing for each of these two windows throughout the year. And if you get it wrong, it can cost you big. And getting it wrong doesn't mean just missing out on players, right? It means at the same time potentially signing a player who's a risk and may not work out for your club and spending that money, right? So it goes both ways. But yeah, man, I think all in all, not what last episode was by any means. I think last episode was we talked about it. Go check it out. This one was better. I just wish they would have gone a little more in depth. I would have been okay with an extra 10 to 15 minutes of just fly on the wall conversations, just really understand how important, how much time these sporting directors have put into strategizing and figuring out a way to make their offer as compelling to their targets as possible. Just some of that stuff, but like outside of that, still a decent episode.
Yeah, for sure. And next episode is going to be really interesting because it is the Hotlanta episode. And I will say, guys, I did get a little bit ahead. I decided to watch it. Sometimes I don't get ahead of the watch the next episode button. Um, and it features a mutual friend of me and Jose's. I got some questions. I don't know what we're gonna do. I think we might have to try to see if we can get AJ on here because I got a ton of questions about how we have someone from our community being featured on MLS Onside.
Yeah, bro. And keep in mind, guys, if you guys know what I'm talking about, AJ from Atlanta United Fan TV, go check him out. AJ's an awesome dude. Have done content with him plenty of times, of course, but met him in person, really cool guy. Did a lot of cool content together in person, and then on top of all of that, he's someone that's worked with MLS before. I think he was one of the original fan channels to like kick it off, an OG, if you will. And MLS recognized him and his crew pretty early, so years and years ago. It is somewhat surprising, but at the same time, like just I think a cool opportunity for an OG in the space. And I haven't seen it yet, but I'm gonna go check it out. And I'll be excited to talk about it next time around.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, that is episode 6. I think it was a good one. We're 2 episodes away from the finale of this series, and then we'll rank them and share our thoughts of how MLS did and Apple TV if there's more to come, or I don't know, man. There's some rumors now about this whole Apple TV not panning out too well for MLS.
Yeah, and Eric talks about that in depth on his new show Unleashed. Yeah, man, we'll see how that all pans out, but I'm excited, bro. Last 2 episodes, man. Let's get after this. I already kind of have my ranking list kind of piecing itself together in my mind. So hopefully these 2 next ones, bro, can absolutely just blow it out of the water. But if they don't, I kind of know where everything's falling.
Yeah, I kind of am on the same boat as well. But all right, Jose, thank you for coming on, and this is your time to tell us what's going on with goals.
Yeah, bro. A lot of cool things. I mean, as usual. But the most exciting thing that everyone just seems to be talking about right now is just the Unleashed series by Eric Winalda. If you haven't seen it, guys, go check it out. Let us know what you think. Pretty soon. I don't want to tease it too much, but we got guests and whatnot featuring on the show as well. He's gonna be bringing some peeps into the studio, and having those if you've already seen the series, you can probably tell having those tough to have conversations in a way that only Eric really can. So if you haven't checked it out, guys, head on over to the Goals TV YouTube channel. Let us know what you think. There's a whole playlist there. Plenty more content there to come soon.
All right, man. Make sure you guys get to it because that guy is everything that you wanted in I guess in some sense, soccer's own Pat McAfee, who is just
Yeah,
unapologetically him. So,
that's a fantastic comparison, man. Yeah, go check it out. Let us know, man. I appreciate it.
but yeah, so thank you, Jose, for coming on, man, and we'll catch you again for next week.
Anything's possible. Anything's possible.
All right, guys. Players of the Week is brought to you by SeatGeek. SeatGeek is an amazing ticketing site app. It is really cool, really easy to use. Me and Edward use SeatGeek for a lot of our live events that we go to, concerts, theater shows, comedy shows, and sporting events, most importantly. We love its simplicity, and I'm sure you guys will love it too. It has a very easy grading system using numbers and colors. If it is very high and very green, that means those seats are great for that deal, great for that price. You're getting a great deal for these seats. Go ahead and buy them. If it's really low and really red, that means keep searching. You're going to find a better ticket, better deal for yourself for this event. We love the simplicity of it. I hope you guys love it. So if you want to sweeten a deal, especially for your first-time users, if you guys use the code BELLYOSPORTS at checkout at SeatGeek.com, use the code BELLYOSPORTS at checkout. For first-time users, you'll save $20 off your first purchase at SeatGeek. SeatGeek Life's an event. We have the tickets. My player of the week is Leroy Sané, who scored 2 goals in Bayern Munich's 3-2 win against St. Pauli. And Edwards' player of the week is Robert Lewandowski, who scored 2 goals in Barcelona's 4-1 win against Girona. So congratulations to Leroy Sané and Robert Lewandowski for being our players of the week. Once again, use that code BELLYUPSPORTS to save yourself $20 off your first purchase at SeatGeek.com. All right, guys, games to watch this weekend. In MLS, we got Charlotte FC versus Nashville SC, 2 teams that are doing pretty well right now in the MLS. We also got Philadelphia Union and Orlando City SC also in the MLS. We got Austin FC and the Portland Timbers, who completely embarrassed my Houston Dynamo. So, but I don't know if I want Austin to win either. But that game will be featured on Fox. So if you guys want a free MLS game, well, there you go. It's going to be featured on Fox. I think a pretty good matchup as well. We also got Pachuca versus Club America, 2 teams that are doing fairly well in Liga MX, and Monterrey versus Chivas. So little Sergio Ramos Chicharito Hernandez reunion right there. In Ligue 1, we got Brest versus AS Monaco and Lyon versus Lille. Once again, in Ligue 1. In the Bundesliga, we got SC Freiburg taking on Borussia Dortmund and Werder Bremen taking on Eintracht Frankfurt. In the Bundesliga, in the Serie A, we got AC Milan taking on Fiorentina and AS Roma versus Juventus over there in the Serie A. In La Liga, we got Barcelona versus Real Betis and Villarreal versus Athletic Club Bilbao. Some teams, really interesting matchups. Real Betis obviously coming off of a big win against Sevilla. But Villarreal and Athletic Club Bilbao, very evenly teams that I want to see how that all goes down. In the Premier League, we got Aston Villa taking on Nottingham Forest and the Manchester derby, Manchester United versus Manchester City. And I'm going to be honest with you, this has a lot of implications for the jersey bet. If Edward beats Spencer, it's over. Edward's going to win it. Yeah, because I think the next thing would be El Clasico. But if Edward wins it, I think he wins it. If Spencer can get the win, Spencer, I think, stays alive in some sense. Maybe not really, because I think he's very much out of it, but it does keep me alive to win the jersey bet. So we'll see how it all goes, man. Will Manchester be blue or will it be red? We'll see, man. So get ready for that. So we're gonna take a break and then we'll wrap this show up for you.
Hey everyone, it's Ryan from No Credentials Required to talk to you about one of our newest partners at Belly Up Sports, SeatGeek. Yeah, live sports is great on television, but the feeling of being at the arena is a priceless experience. That's why our friends at SeatGeek are there to help you find the best tickets at the best prices. Not only can you get tickets to sporting events, but you can also get tickets to concerts, comedy shows, musicals, and more. Search for your desired event now at SeatGeek.com, enter promo code BellyUpSports at checkout, and you save $20 off your first purchase. SeatGeek. Life's an event. We have the tickets.
All right, guys, that's episode 212. I want to thank everyone for sticking through it and listening to this episode. I think we did a really good job on this one. I think it's another good episode. I want to give a shout out to the Belly Up Podcast Network. Check out their website, bellyupsports.com. Also follow them on Instagram and the X at Belly Up Sports. Lots of changes are going on with Belly Up Sports. Check out the Lookout. Check out their YouTube channel. Check out their website. Lots of great articles that are being constantly written. You're going to see a lot of changes for Belly Up Sports, man. Make sure you guys see it for yourself. See why it is not your average website and it is your own personal sports bar. So go ahead and check that out right there at Belly Up Sports. Also, Goals TV, man. You heard me talk to Jose. Always great to have him on. Goals TV is amazing what they've been doing in such a short amount of time, man. Follow them on Instagram at golz.tv. Once again, at golz.tv, goals.tv, and on the X at golz_TV, golz_TV, goals_TV on the X, goals.tv on Instagram. Make sure you guys check them out, man. See what the growth is going on. Check out Eric Winalda's show, Unleashed. Is very fun, very informative. Check it out. And, of course, the man, the myth, the legend, Roosevelt Spencer, the namesake of the Roosevelt Spencer Player of the Year Award. He is the beat maker, maestro. If you guys like the beats that we have on this podcast, he is the reason why we have him. If you guys need some beat work done, well, reach out to him on Instagram at ThatGuyDope. Once again, at ThatGuyDope. And he will take great care of you like he always does with us. With all that being said, man, thank you so much for listening to episode 212. Catch us next week for episode 213. I'm sure it's going to be another banger. Take care, guys.